Hello, little piece of green zircon. I've been looking for you for a long time. You know, the problem with not having a lot of rough available of what you're looking for is that I pretty much have to take what I can find. I mean, the rough has to be clean. I'm not going to buy it if there's any inclusions. But the shape may be a little bit weird. You know, beggars can't be choosers. This particular piece of rough weighs in at 4.065 carats, and internally it is clean. And it's kind of an oval or Marquise shape, looks good. However, when I examine the other side of the stone, well, it's missing. So this piece of zircon is thin. I'll have to think about a design, and I think I may have a Marquise design that might work, so let's give it a try. I can't tell you how many times I've visited one of my gem rough dealer friends and asked about zircon, and the response was, sure, I have zircon. What color do you want, red or blue? Well, 2 shows ago in Tucson, I went around to all the rough dealers I knew and asked for green zircon. Green is one of the rarer colors of zircon. And it was funny, when I got to the last few rough dealers that I knew and I asked, they told me, wow, another person was also asking about green zircon, and no one has asked me for a very long time. Well, turns out the other person was me. Some of my rough dealer friends that I asked early on about green zircon had turned to their rough dealer friends, and voila, a lot of queries on green zircon. All started by me. I wonder if this is how the toilet paper shortages sometimes flare up. Well, that was 2 Tucson shows ago that I started looking, and after 15 months of searching, finally paid off from Norway. Yep, Norway. Norway answered my call. Thanks, Kel. Here it is, green zircon, from Sri Lanka to Norway to me, finally. And yeah, I know everybody is going to chime in on the comments and let me know where tons of green zircon rough is. Yes, I saw Joe H has some, or had some, in small mixed color parcels. I didn't want to buy a parcel of various colored zircon, I just wanted the green ones, like M&Ms. Blue zircon is often the result of heat treating, but green zircon, which is much more rare, is not heat treated. In Sri Lanka, they once tested out heating green zircon just to see what would happen, and the result was that the green became a duller shade of green, so they stopped heating green zircon. So green zircon can be considered as not heat treated. Green zircon, again, is pretty rare and doesn't come in extremely large pieces. The Smithsonian Museum has a 23.5 carat green zircon from Sri Lanka, which is where Cal found my piece of green zircon. Zircon is found all over the world, but in the USA, zircon can be found in Colorado, Massachusetts, Maine, New Jersey, Oklahoma, New York, South Dakota, and Texas. Hey, great work, guys. You made me go all the way to Norway. All right, so to put the peridot onto our Dopp, I'm going to be using one of these kind of longer type Dopps. They're called emerald Dopps. So in the bottom part, I put one of my, just my big large V Dopp, and I put some modeling clay here. So the modeling clay, we want to let it have our level surface with a top Dopp. More over here, less over here, because this goes down almost straight down, and that goes an angle. We're going to lose part of that, so that looks good. So we're going to slide it a little bit down. That might work. So we want our stone to be flat, so we push the top. Okay, I think that's how we're going to set it. Bamboo skewer to mix the 2-part epoxy and our 2-part epoxy RJB welds. So all I'm going to do is mix up our two-part epoxy into our business card using a skewer, and that's what we're going to use to hold the stone in place. So the way you do the epoxy is you want some light over here. Go. And we push that down, topped up onto the stone, tighten it in place, and make sure that we've got some of our resin on the stone, some of it on the Dopp, and it over as it's starting to set. And that should do it. We'll let that harden overnight, and we'll cut some other stone net for now and come back and start cutting our green zircon tomorrow. We're going to cut this green zircon using a design called Marquise 1 by Arya Akavan, I've cut several of his designs and I like them. We want to put the flat end of the Marquise at a 90-degree angle. So we move our angle indicator down to 90 degrees, put the stone in there, and we line it up on a flat piece of metal. We don't have to be perfect. You could actually eyeball it if you wanted. So flat at 90 degrees, and we tighten up our set screw. It'll hold our Dopp in place, and we're ready to start cutting our Marquise. Now the first cuts we're going to do are to cut a center point. We're going to cut a center point at the 42.66 degree angle, and the first two tiers go to that center point on our Marquise. And since the stone is small, I like not having to cut a temporary center point. There's no waste there. So I'm going to try a 600 topper. I might have to go to the 320, but I think this stone's small enough I can start with a 600. And again, I run the machine, my Ultratech, at about 600 RPMs. It goes up to 1,600, but you don't need that. I should have started with this side. That way I'm not wasting time, because the other side is closer. And this is disposable. It's a topper. It's not a great lap, but you don't need really your expensive laps at the 600 level. Although I will, when I replace this, probably get a good crystal light. But anything other than 600, anything more rough, I would use a topper. We're looking at the 46 and the 50 tooth. I'm just trying to get it close. This is just a preforming. I will switch to the other side, the 94 and the 2 tooth. Now, it's going to take a lot of rough off here. What we've done is, if we zoom in on this, you can see the line there, and then on the other side it's the same, right there. That's our center point. Now this side of the stone, actually one of the few times I can say that it's actually doing what I wanted. So we still have some space here for the crown. So we didn't cut too far down. That's the best we can do. That's the center point. Now the other side has extra rough because of the way the stone was set. I moved the stone more to this way. As we cut the girdle, this will flatten up and give us space for the crown. We're on track with our Marquise, and we'll just continue cutting. The next tier Okay, so I'm set up to cut the second tier, which is also going to go to the center point right here. So I'm going to mark the half of the stone, that's this half along the center line. And that way I'll see when I've ground to that center point, which would be the upper left part of that black mark. This angle of this tier is cut at the 41.53 and the number 3 tooth. So let's see how this works out. It cuts rather fast, so take a look, and you see how that putting that marker there helped me show where we've cut. So I've just slightly overcut, but that's okay. This is the preform. So we'll continue to cut now that we know where to cut the second tier. Okay, we've got the first tier of first row of girdles cut. There's 3 rows of girdles, but this will allow us to see how we're doing on the width and the length ratio. So right now the stone is 5.9. From the diagram, we know that the length to width is 2.270. So you take your width of 5.95 millimeters and you multiply it by your length to width ratio of 2.270, and that gives you 13.5. And our stone is about 13.89. So we've got our length to width ratio. Even in this early preforming, we've got it right. But again, there'll be more cutting. The width won't be this wide, and the reason is we don't have enough space here for the crown. So we've got to bring it in a little smaller of a width, which is going to bring our length in. But we're on our way, and so far our green zircon is coming along. It'll become a little smaller again. It's not quite, doesn't have enough room for the crown yet. And I left extra space as I cut out here. So this is the shape where we're looking for, and this is where we're going with this Marquise. We'll continue to work on our Marquise. Okay, I've finished cutting the green zircon with our 1200 crystallite lap. Pretty well ready to go to the next level, which will be the 3000 diamond on a bat lap, and the size pretty close. It's not going to change much now. Just tighten up the our meet points and go the 3000, 8000. All right, I finished polishing our green zircon with 60K diamond on a bat lap, and now I'll transfer it to work on the crown or the upper half of the stone. Okay, this is the first time I'll be using these type of Dopps. They're called emerald Dopps, and they're longer. JB Weld again, 2-part epoxy. I'm going to get epoxy on the stone and the Dopp onto the bottom. Turn it again so this epoxy doesn't go. I don't want it, personally I don't want it on the girdle. That's what I don't want. You're all done, and it'll harden up a little bit, and then you can set it aside, and we'll work on something else, and then tomorrow finish up with our green zircon. The way you align it is using the girdle, and from our diagram there's a facet at the 2 and the 94 teeth. So we put it on either 2 or 94. In this case I put it on the 2. You put your angle at 90, which is flat, and you just run the arm down until it touches your flat piece of metal, and then you just check. What you want is to see that that facet is flat against that piece of metal, and when it is, you can tighten up your set, and then you check the 94 tooth, and that should also lay flat, and then you're set. Okay, I've finished polishing the crown of our green zircon, everything except the table, which is next. And I think in the future, when I grind the table to put the initial Dopp on, I always grind it completely. But in this case, because I was so worried that this stone is kind of narrow, not very deep, I didn't grind all of it down. And I really should have. I'm going to lose a little bit of space right here as I cut the crown flat. The lesson learned is when you grind your rough so that you can put your Dopp on, always completely grind it. Don't leave spaces. Now we'll do the table. The table is just too big. I'm going to go back. I don't want to recut the entire stone. Just change the facets on the crown to step facets. I'm going to put in step facets at a more dramatic angle and try to close up this crown. So let's see how much of this large table we're able to shrink down. This is the before. Okay, I went back and I pre-polished the facets. I used step cuts, and I think that makes the table look a lot smaller, a lot better. What do y'all think? Now the step cuts, you see how they all line up with your girdle, so you have a line all the way up. It's kind of step cuts to the rescue here, I think. You just line your step cuts up with your girdle all the way around, and that's how you do step cuts there. Finished polishing our green zircon. The table's a lot smaller than it was, so let's use our boiling water technique to get the stone out of the adhesive. I've got a pan of water, and I put a half of a paper towel in it so that the Dopp in my stone don't go bouncing around in the water when it starts to boil. So we put it in the water, and it starts to boil, and we'll see what will happen. Nothing yet, and the stone has come off. So that was told to me by Ellen Balmer from the United States Fasteners Guild. The Marquise 1 design was fun to cut, and I would recommend this design for new cutters to put on their to-cut list. However, I would rate this as an intermediate level design, and I would not recommend it as one of the new cutters for stone. Marquise and oval designs are a bit tricky. As far as Marquise designs go, this one was easier than most, at least for me. Easy enough after a cutter has a few stones under his or her belt, but not for the first stones to cut. But again, that's just my opinion. Cut what you want, just have fun cutting. Now, I definitely ran into problems with this stone, but it was not because of the design. It was because the stone was thin, and I misjudged the space I needed to properly cut the crown. So I had to switch on the fly, and I went to a step cut design for the crown. This pretty much saved the day for me. Otherwise, the table would have been very, very large and, in my opinion, not attractive. So having some experience with different types of Marquise cuts will definitely help you. Happy fastening, everyone.